if you're ready, then I'm ready to go.
I'm all ready. Hit me.
Okay, so with me right now on over Skype is Camo, or Cameron Wallace. He is Nashville Meets World over on YouTube. So real quick, before we jump into the whole meat of the pie, explain real quick what Nashville Meets World is and how it came about.
Nashville Meets World. I'll tell you kind of the idea. We were doing the show, and we we were based in Nashville, and we had such great talent that was coming to Nashville from all over the world to record there or write there. And we had some great guests in from Sweden and Ireland, just everywhere, Canada. Uh, and I thought, you know what? There's so much talent all around the world that people haven't heard of. So
Right.
Nashville Meets World quite literally is Nashville is going out to find great talent everywhere. I moved over to the UK 2 months ago. I got out of Nashville the day before they shut down flights. So I moved over here. We're a lot closer to Europe now. We'll still be doing things in Nashville because that's vitally important to what we do. But our mission is finding great talent all around the world, bringing it to our show through interviews, which is our normal format, interviews and live sessions. But since COVID kind of happened, we went completely to live concerts. So, and we've had people from, Norway, Denmark, Sweden, Switzerland, Canada, the US, Australia, just people all around the world that are performing on the show. And we're so proud of this. We get messages from people saying, I'm a fan of this artist now because you exposed them to me. And that's like, okay, we're working now.
Right. And I think me and you kind of have the same similarity is because this podcast is generally towards independent artists or
Yeah.
people that don't have a name. And I think me and you, we try to break the artists because we just believe in them so much.
Yeah, it's almost like the shows are kind of an A&R thing, you know?
Right.
So, yeah, there have been artists that have just blown me away, and nobody's heard of them. And part of the with going to the live shows, and I'll tell you how because normally we record the shows and the interview shows, and we'll be getting back to those as things start to open up a little bit more. But when I moved over here, uh, literally, I got here on March 17th. I was in a pub on the Thursday night following that. That was a Tuesday. So a couple of days later, I'm in a pub, and all these rumblings of, especially in Nashville, all the honky tonks shutting down, all the bars are shutting down, the pubs, the clubs, everything's shutting down. So these artists who make their living going out and playing were being deprived of their ability to make a living. So my first reaction with doing these live stream concerts every day was, let's encourage artists to get their virtual tip jar up, put up links to their music, anything they can do to try and make some money from our platform. And some artists have done very well that way. The frustrating thing is seeing people who are considered as self-employed by governments, and if you're self-employed, then sorry, we can't help you out with unemployment. So I just want to help these guys and girls survive. You know?
Yeah. So I was looking over on your YouTube the other day and yesterday, just trying to do some research before the podcast here. And I've seen that you got a couple people that I'm very familiar with, and I've had on the podcast, like Jay Edwards. That was one guy that absolutely blew me away.
Yeah.
And I was like, I got to get him on. And then one of my dearest friends is Brittany Bexton, which you had on 3 or 4 months ago.
She was an interview.
So,
She was in the studio in Nashville. Yeah.
yes,
We're trying to get her for a
right.
live concert.
So what was the? Have you always been a music person? Like, is
Yeah,
that why you're doing this? Because you're just a music guy?
all the way back. I mean, I started playing pedal steel guitar when I was 7 years old.
Oh
And
wow.
then, like many frustrated musicians, went into radio. uh, and so I did that for a number of years in Canada, in and
Mhm.
around the Toronto market. Um, and then I moved over to England in 2001. And I'd moved more into the advertising side of things. So I was working as a copywriter and a creative director and a brand guy at ad agencies all over the UK. And then I started doing international radio promotion, helping uh, independent artists for a reasonable cost get airplay on radio stations all across the UK, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, Japan. I didn't even bother with the Canadian or US market because there are so many people doing that, but
Okay.
nobody was breaking them internationally. And we did very well with that. Worked with some big name artists out of Canada, Gord Bamford, who one of the biggest names in country music in Canada, and growing in Australia as well. Um, so I continued that when I moved to Nashville, and then through radio and podcasts, we gradually made this show what it is. Our primary um, platform is Nashville Meets World on Facebook. When we do the interviews, because they're pre-recorded, we simulcast them on YouTube and Facebook. But with these live stream shows, we do them on Facebook, and then the next day I put them up on YouTube. So,
So I just want to go back a little bit to your childhood, and we'll jump back into this Nashville meets world. So you started playing pedal guitar at 7. What?
well, yeah,
Why the pedal guitar, and how did that happen? Come
jump right
about?
into pedal steel. Sorry, I started on, it was like a flat top that we played laying down on our laps, and it was just a more open tuning, and then moved up to a
Mhm.
6 string lap steel, and then I had a single 10 string pedal steel, and then I went there to a double 10 with 8-foot pedals and 5 knee levers, and yeah, so that's it. Was funny because at the time when I was 7, the Ontario, I lived outside of Hamilton, Ontario, in Canada, and the Ontario Conservatory of Music was going door to door trying to get people to learn music, and they came to our house, and I said I wanted to learn guitar, but a family friend was a professional steel player, and he played with some of the top artists out of Canada, in the 70s, 60s, and 70s. And he told my parents, "Get him into steel guitar. He'll never be out of work." Um, well, that's changed in Nashville. Um,
Yeah.
that for the most part now, steel players in Nashville, they're just, that's utility. You got to be able to play a bunch of different things as well as steel.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm just fortunate that I didn't end up like my brother playing accordion. So, uh, so I played basically from about 7 until I was about 20. And when I moved to England the first time, I picked it up again, and then I realized why I'd stopped playing. It's just, you get tired of playing to the same 4 walls all the time. And at the time here, I had a 1977 Showbud Double 10 Super Pro. Steel people will know what that is, and it was just beautiful. I've always loved the tones of Showbuds, and because back when I was coming up, it was like Ford and Chevy. You were either Showbud or Emmons, and
Yeah.
yeah, I was always Showbud. I just thought they had such a nice tone. But another thing that made me stop playing too was I'm not mechanical, and pedal steel is a very mechanical instrument. You have to be able to be fiddling with the rods and all that kind of stuff underneath, and my mind just doesn't go there. I just want to play it. So yeah, I didn't even like restringing it. So
Who was that first artist that you remember that you were just like, okay, this is I want to get in the music business because of this one artist? Or was there ever just one artist, or was there multiple?
I think there were multiple ones of different genres. You know, the first concert I ever went to see was Charlie Pride in Toronto, um, back in the early '70s when he was just having hit after hit. But Pink Floyd, the
Yeah.
the this first song people ask me about, or it's a question that I've asked people. What's the first song that you remember hearing that painted a picture in your mind, like you could see it, you could smell it, you could taste it? Um, the big one for me, by that criteria, was Saturday in the Park by Chicago. When I heard that song the first time, I was there. Like I could see everything they were talking about. And I could, hear the ice cream guy and the smells. I could, I'd never been to Chicago, but that's the park that was a park they were singing about, but I was there musically. And there was another one too, Tom Green County Fair. Um, was huge, by Roger Miller, and that one as well. I could see the dust. I could feel the itching from playing in the hay. Um, I could hear and smell the Midway. So songs like that had a profound effect on me, where I could picture things in my head, and use all of my senses pretty much by hearing a song. And that's really why I've stayed in the music business more or less for 51 years. So yeah.
So for me, I kind of get around to that same thing. Like, what's that one song that brings you back to childhood? And for me, it would be like, I'm only 22, so I haven't lived as many years as you have. But like for me, it would be
Thank
like
you,
maybe
thank
like
you.
Phil Vassar, just another day in paradise, or maybe like cleaning out my closet from Eminem, or
Yeah,
John Mayer, stuff like that. Which is you can use all your senses to just know. In that Phil Vassar song, you can see him barbecuing. You can see the roses he's bringing in. It's just an amazing thing what music can do for somebody.
yeah. Um, and the evolution was, I was working at a small radio station just east of Toronto, and we were owned by a chain of Golden West Broadcasting. They're based out Western Canada. So we were the only radio station they had in Eastern Canada. Everything else was in Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Alberta. So all Western stations. And at the time, I was voicing, it was called The Nation's Tracks. It was a Canadian Top 40 countdown, national countdown. And I was hearing all of these bands that our sister stations were playing, but we weren't playing in Toronto. And that made me crazy, because they're good. Why aren't they breaking in Eastern Canada? So
Right.
I started a radio show that I produced, at our station east of Toronto. And I had all of our stations out west send me a segment every week featuring a Western artist, a local regional artist that hasn't had any airplay in the Toronto market. So I created this show, and it was great because people in Toronto were hearing this band from Saskatchewan or a band from Manitoba, and people on the other side of the coin out west were hearing bands that they hadn't heard of from the Toronto area. So I think that that was kind of the earliest evolution of where I am musically, um, came from. That started it. Trying to get artists out there that people aren't hearing because of their geographical location. Nowadays, it's not so much that, but there is so much music and so much accessibility to music out there it's just difficult to be heard above the crowd. So Nashville meets world, I think, in our own little way, and with your show as well. It's all about giving those people a voice and introducing them to fans. I mean, we've got people that watch the show in Saudi Arabia, China, uh, Germany, France, all the Nordic the Scandinavian states, Canada. I'm trying to think of some of the India, Swaziland in Africa, South Africa, Kenya, just all over the world, and they love it. They absolutely love it. It's like they're discovering something for the very first time, and it's so cool to see the excitement. It's almost like the old days when you'd camp out at a record store to go in and get a new album from somebody you really dug.
Right. I wonder. Obviously, you've had hate doing this because you're getting people on that no one really knows about. So I can just imagine the people get someone on that we want to hear, and then how do you deal with the hate? You don't ever get nothing like that?
To be honest, we don't get that.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I think people passively, well, I've never heard of them, so I'm not interested in watching. I never get anybody that sends me a message or complains that we aren't getting big names on. I think we've been doing the show long enough now that people know what we're all about. We've got very loyal viewers who are active, watch the show virtually every day, because with the live concerts, we're doing them every day. When we were recording the show, we were doing 3 a week because of all the editing and everything that has to go on with it. But we've never had that. I think the biggest name as far as likes we've had, and I can't remember who, but I think their numbers are in over 100,000, so they're not huge artists, but they're really good, and they deserve to be heard. And we're getting them from all different genres. We had Bonnie May on, and that name may not be instantly recognizable, but Bon did. She was playing in Vegas, and Johnny Depp came up and jammed with her band, and there's a video of it online. I saw that video, so I reached out to her, and she said, absolutely, I want to do the show. So we're getting blues artists. I'm in contact with a classical group here based out of London. It's all about different genres. By being in Nashville, you naturally kind of default to country and Americana. But we're getting much more interest doing multi-genre. And when you're doing acoustic performances, it's all the same anyway. It doesn't matter whether it's country or rock or anything else. It's all down to either an acoustic piano or an acoustic guitar, and it's all the same. It's a level playing field.
So with you being in England right now and the show being based out of Nashville, how is that working within 2 different spots?
We're looking to have somebody do some shows from Nashville, because we want to keep that feeling there. But and this isn't meant to sound like I'm egotistical, because that's not what I am. But for the sake of the show, I am Nashville. So whether I'm here or in Nashville or Toronto or someplace else, it's me doing the interviews. And so Nashville is actually going out and meeting the world, just like the name says.
So I just got a few more questions for you here. Not picking favorites, but who were some of the people that you had perform on the show that just absolutely blew you away?
Now I have to look. Hang on a second, because
okay.
At my age,
you've had so many.
I can't remember. And we've had so many artists on now. We're up over 60.
Right.
Some that stood out. Georgia Barker stood out. She was recently, about a week ago, and she's from Clitheroe, which is a suburb of Manchester. She was incredibly talented. And we had an issue with her because somebody in the comments, I like to think we're in a grown-up world, but somebody in the comments said something about her physicality, and I was going to delete it, and I thought, this is a teachable moment here, because she studied at a very prestigious music school, BIM, in Manchester. So you're taking all that hard work, all the hard work she does on a daily basis as a singer and a songwriter, and you're reducing it down to something about her physicality. And it's like, there's just no place for that in anywhere in the music business anymore. That's dinosaur stuff. But anyway, she was really good. Georgia Barker, I really suggest people go check her out. Also from Bristol, we had a really talented woman on. Kelsey Bovey was really good. I've had, some really good friends that are amazing. Tara Lynn Pfister was on the show. I like her edginess. She's really cool. And let me look here. I have to look over my glasses. Jessica Lynn we had on the show, and she's been kind of hinted about for a few years as being like kind of the new Shania. And
right.
she's had close to 25,000 views on our Facebook page from her performance. Really talented. And we'd interviewed her when she was on her UK tour last year. Zoe, who hosts some of the shows for us, interviewed her, and she got a lot of views then too. There's just so many people, and I hate to pick favorites because they all stand out in their unique way. I loved Bond's performance, Bonnie Mae. So at Southern Halo, I always put on a really good show. So there's just so many out there. I really hate to pick favorites, but those are some of our biggest shows anyway. And just, if I can, I want to say that something that I have found through doing these shows is that our audience is actually exactly the opposite of what people in radio keep telling us about female artists. Radio keeps saying female listeners want to hear female or want to hear male artists. They don't want to hear female artists. Oh yeah? Well, we get mostly women on the show. And the cool thing is that most of our views have come from female artists. We recently had Louis Bryce on, who's an incredible talent, and a nice guy, talented songwriter, talented artist, and not a reflection on his quality, but we didn't get the views on that we're getting from unknown women.
Right.
So, ladies, if you're out there, don't believe what commercial radio is telling you.
No, I have the same thing with mine. Like, literally, like, it's like I can have a female artist on and it draws thousands and thousands of downloads, and then you just have one unknown guy and it's like you get hundreds, and it's like, well, you're just going to go with what's getting the most views and the women, you know what I mean? You're just going to go with what everybody's eating up.
We've always, even doing the interview show, we've always just naturally had more women on it, and it was nothing by design that we said, well, we want to have more women than men on the show. That's just the way it worked. So we're really proud that we've showcased so many women, and I think I prefer having female artists on the show because I see how hard they have to work to not even get the same recognition as guys. So they tend to be, and again, it's a broad generalization. I'm not meaning to cause offense to anybody, but they tend to work harder. They tend to go out of the box a lot more and try creative ways of doing things, because for me, it's kind of like, the phrase work smarter, not harder. Women have to do both. And it's just shaken out that with the live concerts, we've had mostly women. Like I haven't looked at the specific numbers, but I think we've had, out of 60-ish broadcasts, we've had 90% of them have been women, and all drawn really good numbers. When we put a guy on, there's interest, and like you get numbers, but they're just not the huge numbers that you female artists. So women are listening to women and don't believe what commercial radio is trying to sell.
So back in 2019 in October, Nashville Meets World was changed from Nashville Access. So what was the initial reaction to you doing that, and what was the process of why you did that?
There were a number of reasons. Nashville Access had started out as an internationally syndicated weekly country radio show. Right. At our peak, we were on 66 radio stations in 18 countries around the world: Argentina, Brazil, Chile, Canada, couple in the U.S., but Australia, New Zealand, France, the U.K. We were all over the place. And that was focusing on really the more commercial artists that you hear on country radio. We had two features. One was our pick of the week, where we would highlight, and it was the last song on the show, we would highlight an indie artist. And then we started working in Texas pick of the week too, featuring a Texas artist. It was hard to monetize that show. We had a lot of listeners, but because ratings are done differently in different countries, and getting anything out of Mexico without having to pay for it was difficult.
Yeah.
So we decided to wrap up the radio show and concentrate on the podcast and the Facebook Live show. And the podcast was essentially, my co-host and I would do a riff at the beginning, riff on something, and then it would be the audio from one of the Facebook Live shows that we'd done. But we found the podcast had run its course, and so did the Facebook Live thing. So I'd gone to a recorded version of it and was doing them recorded. And I felt kind of limited. Nashville Access, it was like, we're opening up Nashville to you. And so if you want to visit Nashville, or you want to see Nashville artists or people coming to Nashville, yes. But to me, the world was offered so much more opportunity to go out and find artists from around the world. So doing the interview show, when I ceased with Nashville Access and created Nashville Meets World, we had correspondents in different places around the world. We had a correspondent in Buenos Aires, Toronto, Las Vegas, London, Glasgow, in Australia. And we were discovering more and more people that we could bring on board as correspondents. So on Wednesdays, we had Worldwide Wednesday, so we would feature somebody from a different place in the world showing us talent from that place in the world. And I think, that's the general idea, but we're going to be, once we come out of this virus thing and people are doing interviews again, where you don't mind getting a little closer than 6 feet, right. Then we're going to do things a little differently. We're going to kind of combine travel with music. So, you've heard of ecotourism. We're music tourism. So we'll start out here in the UK, and as travel things ease in other places, we'll go to different places. But we're going to probably produce fewer shows a week. We'll have concerts during the week. But we'll go to different places and meet up with an independent artist, and they can take us around their town and show us where they grew up, if they played in church, or if they, this was a local club that let me busk out in front of it. So we'll see kind of the city and area somebody's from, and then we'll have a concert from that artist, a half-hour concert. So it'll be an hour-long show, fewer shows per week, and we're going to travel and get out there and meet people and meet artists, and not only bring you the music, but the surroundings that inspired the music. So that's kind of the direction. You're getting kind of an exclusive on that.
Well, great, man. Glad to get it. A few more things here.
Yeah.
What's one question that you're never asked that you wish you would be asked? Or one topic you're never asked to talk about that you'd wish you'd love to talk about?
I don't know. I don't think there's ever a thing, because as you probably learned, you ask me a question and I'll talk forever, which is like an interviewer's dream. So
yeah, let's work back to do.
Yeah, if people don't ask me a question, sometimes just because I talk so much, I'll tell you. So I don't think there is one. I really don't.
Okay. All right, I do this thing on here every now and then. I'm going to do it with you. It's called rapid questions.
All
So
right.
I'm going to spit out a question. You're going to spit out the first thing that comes to your mind. You good?
All right.
Cool with that? All
Yep.
right. Favorite TV show of all time?
Oh, God. Spooks. It's a British TV show produced by the BBC. It's great.
Favorite artist of all time?
Iron Maiden.
Wow, I didn't expect that. Okay, cool.
Seen them 4 times. 4 times in 2
Are they
countries.
any good?
Yeah.
Are they worth going to see?
Yes.
Or if they would come back.
Yeah, I've seen them in Nashville twice. And I've seen them over a number of years. And every time I see them, they get better. Their stage show gets better. They get better. They sound better every time. So, yeah, really worth it.
To me, it's like that with Kiss. Like, I think Kiss gets better as they age, because I just think they learn so much. There's like, okay, now we got to incorporate this with this part, because we didn't do it last year.
That's right.
So if you're on death row, what would be your last meal?
Grilled cheese and tomato soup.
Very, very simple, huh? Favorite channel on the TV?
I don't really have one now. Since I moved here, I just entirely stopped watching live TV because I was tired of. I haven't watched news in a very long time because I wanted to feel good about life. So I haven't. When I moved back here, we don't have the same channels as you for the most part, but I've been watching basically Netflix, Prime, and stuff on the BBC iPlayer over here, so I can watch old BBC shows. Yeah, I haven't watched live TV in ages.
What have you been watching on Netflix? Because I'm always curious what people watch.
I get them all confused now. On Prime, the big one for me is Titus Wellover's show, Bosch. It's great. He's great as Bosch. I've always liked Titus Welliver as an actor. People would remember him probably from the Comcast business commercials that he used to be on in the U.S. But I love that show. On Netflix, used to love House of Cards, but they jumped the shark in their last season. I can't remember, to be
All
honest.
the Netflix originals seem to do that.
What's that?
I said all the Netflix original shows usually always jump the gun the last couple of seasons,
Yeah,
in my opinion.
yeah. But I bounce between Netflix and Prime, really, because I'll watch everything on Netflix and then I can't find anything, and then I'll bounce over to Prime and
Yeah.
go through that. So
Last two questions for you,
yeah.
dude. What would be the last song before you die that you would love to hear?
Um,
One song.
Ozzy Osbourne, "See You on the Other Side."
Have you heard Ozzy's new album?
Yes, I love it. It's excellent. Best work he's done in years. It's great.
I
But
agree. I agree.
look at the backup band he's got, like the studio guys: Anton Fig on drums, Chad Smith from the Chili Peppers. I mean, he's just got incredible players on that. So it and lyrically and musically, Ozzy still's got it. Boy, I love his stuff.
After all these years,
But I like his last
and I
few.
do agree.
I liked his last few. Black Rain, I thought was a really good album, but this one just is a leap ahead. The old guys, the old guys get it. They know it's about the music, and people are starving for the actual music. They don't care about image at this point. They don't care about making some label exec happy. They're just releasing music because that's what they do. And they're making some of the best. I thought the last Kiss studio album was some of their best work in years.
Too. I agree.
It got slammed a lot by critics, but I loved it. I just find these old guys, and I qualify myself as one of them too, but I just find these guys, they have no one to impress but themselves. And
Sure.
they take chances they couldn't take when they were signed to a label. They're writing and cutting songs, and this is across all genres too. They're writing and cutting songs not because some label exec has said, well, we need a ballad from you this time, or we need something up tempo from you. They're releasing what they release because it's the songs they like. I think there's much more passion when you get past trying to compete at that level where you've got to have albums. Well, it's not albums, nobody cares anymore, but you've got to have your streams, and you got to have, all of that stuff that's part of the machine. That's why I like indie artists. They don't pay attention to that kind of stuff. Sometimes out of necessity, but they have way more freedom, and everybody's so worried about getting signed. And it's like, why? Why would you get signed? Everything, in most cases, the label will like you because you're different. And then you get into the machine and they crank out all the stuff. They shave off all the stuff that made you different and crank you out as just another artist. And it ruins you. Be an indie. Do what you want. Yes, it's a struggle. But if you're doing things right, then it's not a struggle, or not so much of a struggle.
Well, man, I appreciate you doing this. I'm sorry. I appreciate you, and I apologize for taking 40 minutes of your time for this little nonsense of a podcast that I got.
It's totally cool, and I love doing it. So anytime you want me back to hear me ramble on for more time, then I'm happy to join you.
Sure, man. So put out all your socials and all the things you got going on in your life currently.
Okay, Nashville Meets World, you can watch on Facebook at Nashville Meets World, on YouTube at Nashville Meets World TV. All our other socials are at Nashville Meets World. I think Twitter, it's at Nash Meets World because they wouldn't give me enough characters to use the whole thing. So there's that. And then if you want to keep up with my acting, modeling, all that kind of stuff. Look at Camo Wallace TV. And I have a website that I've just started, and I'm still in the process of populating, but I do a blog on there. It's CameronWallaceTV.wordpress.com. And I just started a new venture that you can like the Facebook page. It's called the Scribble Artist Brand Consultancy. And we're helping indie artists, performers, celebrities, athletes refine their brand. Anybody that's in the public eye needs to kind of be aware of their brand. And we help them do that. So tons of stuff.
Well, man, we'll get you back on to talk about all the acting and the modeling that you do, because I'm actually very interested in that as well. But appreciate you doing this, dude. I really do appreciate it.
Anytime. Good luck with your show, and it's great to see you again. It's been ages.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it.
All
Have
right.
a good one.
You got it. Talk to you later.
All right, bye.
Bye.